This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised. Good morning and welcome. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world. And welcome to another wonderful sunset safari from the western fringes of the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park. My name is James Henry. Owen is on camera. And that is an elephant, a little elephant, who's following on behind his herd, which is just in front of us. We'll go and see if we can get another nice view of them, while I tell you that the first 45 minutes of our show, as always, is dedicated to the kids. So those between the ages of 0 and 18, and even if you don't consider yourself a kid, and you are between those ages, you can still send us your questions to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. The rest of you will have to wait 45 minutes. Hello, little fellow. How are you? Now, we've been asked very frequently over the last little while if we get tigers here. Like, probably about 20 times, I think, a drive over the last 3 or 4 drives. So I'm just going to quickly give you a bit of background to the area. This is an African reserve, so we're in the northeastern corner of South Africa, in the western Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park, on a private reserve called Djuma Private Game Reserve. And then we'll also be joined by another reserve called andBeyond Ngala, which is about 40 kilometers north of us. There are no tigers in Africa. There are no tigers in South Africa. Well, there are some, but none of them wild occurring. So there are some in captivity, but none of them occurring wild. Alrighty, that's out of the way. We've got some beautiful elephants here. Our plan is going to be to see whatever we can see today, whatever nature has to offer us on this Earth Day. It's a magnificent early winter's day here in the low veld of South Africa. The temperature is 82 degrees Fahrenheit or 28 degrees Fahrenheit Celsius, and we're all going to enjoy Earth Day and appreciate every single creature that we manage to find during the course of the next 3 hours. Our ultimate plan is to go to the eastern side of the reserve and perhaps pick up on a leopardess called Thandi, who's 13 years old. Her tracks were rumoured to have crossed into Djuma during the course of the morning, so maybe we'll be very lucky with her and her cubs, but who knows. Let's go across to Lauren, who's got a little carnivore already.
I should have a little Dwarf Mongoose here. Is he back, Dobby? We've had the most perfect view of this little guy, and I think he's now hiding in his termite mound. He's obviously got camera shy all of a sudden because he realizes he's live. My name is Lauren. I do have Davy on camera today, and of course, happy Earth Day, everybody. It's a very special day today because it's a day of celebrating the Earth and everything in it. And I think we all know that it's very important that we take care of our planet these days, including all the animals in it. Now, I believe we have so many families watching from all over the world, from Canada, USA, UK, Bahrain, South Africa, Zambia, Honduras, Spain, Singapore, France, and Malaysia, and so many more. It is really, really great to have you on board with us. So please do talk to us. And I believe our little mongoose has completely disappeared. That is very sad. Let's just give it a few more seconds, Davy. He was posing so perfectly. Dwarf Mongoose, the smallest carnivores that we get out here. They don't look like carnivores, but they really are. I see something, Dobby, but I don't actually know if it's a mongoose. I'm going to go forward. The sun, it's an extremely hot day today. The hottest it's been in quite a while. I don't think we're going to get another little view of the sky. Dwarf mongoose are territorial, and they do utilize many different termite mounds in their territory. So you won't always find them at the same one. Once the sun is starting to set, they will run for cover in the nearest termite mound that they can find. So you won't always find them in the same place every single day. So James is obviously checking the east today. I'm going to check the west, just to be different. And now we're going to send you guys all the way across to andBeyond in Ngala for Eric to say good afternoon.
Yeah. But this thing's not working.
Okay, she's linking to you.
Is she?
Okay, I'll tell you when he's live.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to andBeyond in Ngala for the afternoon. As you can see, we've started the afternoon off very, very strong with a pack of wild dogs, and they were seen a little bit later on this morning. We decided to get you nice and early to see what they're up to and have a look at them lying in the shade over there. They're looking pretty comfortable, full.
Introduce yourself also.
My name's Eric, by the way. Thank you. Kirst, I don't know, my phone isn't working too well, so I can't hear anything you're saying. But anyway, yeah, these wild dogs are very, very full. They've got the full bellies. They're lying in the shade at the moment, just catching the daylight and the wind. There should be more around, but can't really see them. But I think most of them are lying in the bushes on the left-hand side of the road. Okay, cool. So just whilst we sit with these wild dogs, we'll send you across to James. Hopefully the signal's a bit better from in the next couple of minutes.
What a very exciting start to our drive, hey? Wild dogs and elephants. We've left our elephants and we're heading towards the eastern boundary now. Oh dear, this dear vehicle is stuck already. There we go. Sometimes we get stuck out here. It's quite exciting. Anyway, we're going to head along here towards the eastern boundary of our reserve. There are no fences around our reserve, and so the animals can come and go as they please. It's only us with our human property laws that can't cross the boundaries, but the animals can move as they like. Amelia and Emily, what a very clever question. You want to know which animal is the most in danger of becoming extinct? In this particular area, it's probably those wild dogs you saw there. Wild dogs are very threatened. They are highly endangered. And what you can do to help them is to make people aware of them, to tell people about wild dogs, to tell people about nature in general, to tell people about how important it is that we conserve areas that animals like wild dogs can live in. So even if wild dogs aren't your big thing, if you're not living in Africa, perhaps you live in the States, and you want people to conserve wolves or bears or mountain lions or whatever it is, the biggest thing you can do is to become as informed as possible. So read and read and read about the latest research about the animals and conservation, and then find out how best to tell people about the animals and how important nature is to human beings. That's the best thing you can do. The more people understand and fall in love with nature, the more or the greater the chance you will find animals like wild dogs and wolves and bears and those sorts of creatures will have. Does that make sense? And we're driving very slowly because a leopard is difficult to spot. In my case, nigh on impossible. And we'll just quickly have a little look here at these trees, or this tree. There's a beautiful tree called a russet bush willow. And it's got lovely, lovely pods on it. And you know, for the first time, I've been looking at this tree for almost 20 years now. And for the first time today, Owen, who's on camera, said to me, "You mean that tree with the red and yellow pods?" And I'd never thought of it like that until I thought about them carefully and then looked. And they have got yellow on them. I always just thought of them as being that kind of rusty color. But he's absolutely right. They're a rusty colour and they're yellow. So this is the russet bush willow, which is the common tree on the riverbed areas of this area. Then there's quite a special butterfly own to the right-hand side there in the grass, about 4 feet off the right-hand side, and that is a painted lady. Can you see it there? It's sitting on a little bush. Got him. That's a painted lady. Is that an interesting name? And off she goes. Alrighty, shall we head back over to the wild dogs with Eric and see if we can hear him and he can hear us and everything's okay there?
Is she talking? Okay, welcome back. We have still got these wild dogs with us, and it's no changes, only the two over here. We haven't seen the rest of the pack. We think that they might be somewhere in the bushes on the left-hand side, resting in the shade. Like I was saying a little bit earlier on, if you zoom in right into that one that's facing us, if you look at its belly, that very, very full, fat belly, looks like they fed on something quite substantial this morning. So I doubt that their movements are going to be too much this afternoon. It might be worth just watching them and maybe seeing if they do move with the shade at some point throughout the afternoon. So Benjamin, who's 6 years old, who lives in Toronto, has just asked a question about if wild dogs have any natural predators. Oh, and the one's just stood up. Let's see what it gets up to. I'm sure it's not going to spend too much time standing up. It might just flop straight back down. But just to get back to you there, Benjamin, and they don't necessarily have too many predators. Not really anything will actively go and hunt wild dogs, although lots of other predators consider them as a strong competition. And I think the reason for that is they're very efficient hunters, so they're very, very good at hunting. And when they're moving through an area, if they're not killing an impala or two a day, if an animal sees a wild dog, they tend to turn and run away as far as they can. And if that's the case, they might move out of a predator's territory and they might not be able to get the opportunity to hunt them. And so if predators like, I guess, mostly lions, I say, would be their biggest predator. If a lion sees a wild dog, they'll ferociously go and try and attack wild dogs. Luckily, though, wild dogs are very fast and nimble, and it doesn't happen too often that a lion gets a chance to catch them. I mean, sometimes if they're sleeping like this and the lion is sneaking up using the cover, using wind well, and surprises the wild dogs might be unlucky and the lion might be able to catch them. Other than that, it doesn't tend to happen too often, unless there is a den site. So when the small little puppies are too young, so they're a little bit too young and too young to follow the adults. But if that's the case, then they get left alone. And if a lion comes and smells around the den, then they will perhaps kill them and get rid of the puppies. So whilst we're sitting and waiting for some movement, we're going to send you back to Djuma with Lauren, who's got a crested barbet.
One of the coolest birds in the bush, the crested barbet, the punk rocker of the bush. But I'm not entirely sure what he's doing. When I first approached this Marula, I actually thought, oh, Davi, look, there's a little squirrel. Can you see it? Oh, it's also disappeared. All the animals are disappearing on us today. We had some blue wax bows for you, but they've also disappeared. But this barbet has been pecking away at the bark. So I thought it was a woodpecker, but then I realized it's not a woodpecker, of course, once we got the camera on it. I don't quite know what they're doing. I mean, they are omnivorous, so they will eat insects but they also feed on fruit and nectar. So I don't know if he was trying to get some. Oh, there you are. Hello. So cute. We do see you. Tree of life, the Marula tree, one of my favorite trees out here. The most common tree, or one of the most common, but it's full of life. Manan, you're 15 from India. You're asking how many different types of trees do we get here? Manan, we have so many different trees. I'm not sure if I know a total number. We have trees that are deciduous, and we have trees that keep their leaves all year round. The two that you're looking at right now are marulas, and they are very, very common trees that we get out here. Also produce a delicious fruit called the marula fruit that we get in summer. It's so yummy. The elephants love it too. But sadly, summer's coming to an end, so we don't have the fruits anymore. It's also only the female marulas that produce the fruits. I'm trying to see if we can spot some other trees around. We have lots of cabritums. They are very, very common around here. The russet bush willow that I think James showed you. We have the red bush willow. All sorts of different types of bush willows. Leadwood, a leadwood tree is a combretum. One of my other favourites, I have many favourites, is a knobthorn tree. I'm going to try and show you a knobthorn. They are also known as a tree. Lots of animals depend on a knobthorn. Silver cluster leaves, they're another one of my favourites. I have so many trees. I'm actually not sure if I know the total number of species that we get out here, but we should ask James that when we go across to him. He may know. But we have a lot of different trees, and they're all found in different parts of the reserve. There's a knobthorn. It's a dead one. I'm sorry about that, but it's still a knobthorn. And Davy will give you a great look at the bark, and you'll see that it has knobs on it, and that's where the name knobthorn comes on. There we go. Got a little spine on the end as well. So this tree, unfortunately, is not alive, but it's still a knobthorn. Did you just hear something as well, Davy? Oh. So just give me a second, I'm listening. I thought I heard something coming from over there, but it could possibly just be the bird. So yes, different trees require different soils and different substrates on the ground. So you'll only find specific trees at certain parts of the reserve. You won't all find them everywhere, if that may. I think that's a roller up there. Let's see, hello. Are you the one making all the noise? I imagine you are. Aha, lilac-breasted roller. One of the most colourful birds we have. One of the most gorgeous birds we have. But an incredibly ugly call. Did you hear that? It's calling for you. It's really not an attractive call. I thought it was an impala. So we're going to continue bumbling, see what else we can find for you, and we are going to send you back across to James with another bird.
Can you still see him, Owen? No. Yeah, we've lost a firefinch that was in there, beautiful little red finch, but they never sit still for any length of time. And then you'll be able to hear the call of a bird called a tawny-flanked prinear going tip, 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 tip. I'm just trying to see, there was a great deal of activity from the birds as we stopped here. But now there seems to be less. I'm just going to go forward, Owen. There's some other birds just up ahead, little things. Quite difficult to pick these things up. They're all flitting about in these trees here. Oh, Tyler, that's a question I wish I could answer myself. I don't know why birds' names get changed all the time. Sometimes it's because the same bird is called a different thing in different places, and so they then need to try and call them the same names. But I just think these ornithologists can't make their minds up, half the time. Sometimes it makes no sense to me at all, and then they call birds really strange names, such as a bird that have here called the black-collared barbet. And the black-collared barbet has a bright red face that looks like a tomato with a beak on it. But he's not called the red-faced barbet. No, he's called the black-collared barbet. There are lots of great examples of very strange names that the ornithologists have given to birds. So I don't know, I don't think they really... I think they like to make it complicated for the rest of us. And they change them one year and then the next year it's changed back again. In seriousness, though, sometimes their names change with new science and new knowledge. So if perhaps a bird was thought to be related to another bird and new science says that it isn't, well, then they'll change the name. All right, I think we better carry on. We don't seem to be able to find any of the birds that we'd hoped we could from here. Let's go back to Eric and his predatory doggies. They won't get up yet, but hopefully sometime soon.
So we decided to just loop around to the other side of these bushes to see if we can find the rest of the pack. And this is pretty much the only one that we could see that has its head up. The rest of them are fast asleep. They must have had a really big meal. And because they're all scattered around, we haven't quite been able to see exactly what pack this is, but I don't think it is that huge pack that you saw with Roan about 2 or 3 days ago. I think it's a bit of a smaller one, which means that within the last week we've had 2 different independent packs moving throughout the property, which is actually quite remarkable. And this one is one that's just behind it in the bushes. It's picked up its head. It seems like this one's having a battle with flies. So Judah from Texas, who's 9 years old, has just asked if wild dogs and hyenas are the same. And they're actually quite different, Judah. And there are a number of really nice ways to look at the differences. And whilst we've got this one in view, I think the easiest thing to notice is just those really, really big ears that they have. And so hyenas have got much smaller ears. Wild dogs have got these really big, almost like massive satellite dishes on top of their heads as they move them around. And then I don't know if we can see the color too well. Look at it, there's a bit of tawny, there's a bit of black around there. And then a very, very characteristic feature, or something that stands out a lot with wild dogs, is a very white tip to the end of the tail. And so those are some of the features that a wild dog has. A hyena is a little bit different. And I'll quickly ask Marcel to swing to my direction, Judah, just so I can show you what a hyena looks like. So look at that wild dog, and I'll look here. This is a hyena, or at least one of the species of hyena that we get in Africa. This is the one that we find within this area. So if you have a look at its ears, they are big, I suppose, but they're not nearly as big as the wild dogs. And then also look at the color. Pretty much tawny or like light brown, and then they've got spots all over him. So this is what we call a spotted hyena. Another difference is they're slightly bigger. So this one will probably weigh quite trying to convert it into pounds, maybe close to 160, 150 pounds, maybe a little bit heavier than that, whereas a wild dog might only be 80 pounds or so. So I think those are some of the major differences. Another big difference is their behavior. So these African wild dogs really, really like to move around during the daytime. They're much smaller than other predators like hyenas and lions. So they like to move around in the early hours of the morning and in the evening when the lions and the hyenas tend to be active. So there's less chance of them coming together and fighting with one another. Hyenas are nocturnal, so they come out at nighttime. They've actually got a very interesting relationship between hyenas and wild dogs. And very, very often, if you see a pack of wild dogs like this, especially once they've fed, you'll find a hyena lurking around in the distance. And he's just waiting for these wild dogs to get up and hunt, and they'll try their luck. As soon as a wild dog catches something, The hyena, because it's bigger, has got confidence, and it will try to run in and try and steal the carcass away from the wild dogs.
And we're waiting for some audio.
Dharma. Sorry, I got the question and the area, but I didn't get your name. But I think you're asking, is it Carla? Is asking why wild dogs are endangered from Johannesburg. Thank you. And there are a number of reasons. I think because they don't really have a very, or they don't have a territory that they protect. They've got a home range, which means that they cover huge distances. And if they cross out of a protected area, then in South Africa, because there's so many people and so many farms around the outskirts of national parks, just like this, they cross over, then they might start eating livestock like sheep and cows. And if that's the case, then a lot of farmers, especially back in the day, in the 1980s and the 1990s, would go out and try and physically remove and hunt wild dogs to get them off of their property. They're also very susceptible to diseases, so they can catch diseases a lot. And if they come into contact with domestic dogs, and a domestic dog hasn't been vaccinated and might have something like rabies or something like that, or canine distemper, then a wild dog will bring it back. And because they're such a social animal, it will interact with each and every one of the members of the pack. And so it will spread the disease quite easily. And they don't really have an immune system built up to counteract diseases like that. And unfortunately, a lot of wild dogs will die like that. On the natural side of things, we're looking at predation, like I was mentioning, with lions, and sometimes a hyena might go after a wild dog if it's isolated. So there are a number of reasons. And I think in total, within the Kruger National Park itself, within the greater area, there's about 458 wild dogs on the last count. So we're incredibly lucky. I mean, not only to see one, but to have two around in the area. And it bodes very well for the next season, because hopefully one of these is pregnant. And if that's the case, they might be looking for a place to den there and give birth to their pups. And that would be an incredible sighting to have if we do get to see them. So whilst we're waiting, maybe we try and find the alpha female, the leader of the pack. There's that white-tailed Benjamin that I was talking about. Let's maybe loop back to Lauren, who will give you an update on what she's doing for the afternoon.
I am watching a bird soaring high in the sky, very, very far away from where we are now. I originally thought it was a vulture. The size of it looks like a vulture, and those very feathery wingtips. Can you see that? Yes, I think. Ooh. Nice one, Davy. I think it's vultures. I actually really cannot see. One of them looks like the wings are tipping up at the end, which is a sort of key feature of the batelier. The wingtips of a batelier turn upwards at the ends in flight. I'm not entirely sure. They're soaring, they're looking. Now, there is a carcass on the western side of the reserve that we know about. It's a very small carcass, so we are eventually going to head to the west. We believe that the lioness that Davy and Trishala had this morning may also be in the western side of the reserve here on Djuma. But because it's so hot, most animals rest at this time of day. It's far too hot to be mobile. You know, they're covered in hair. This is the time when they rest. We also think the wild dogs from this morning that I believe James had are somewhere on this property too. So maybe in an hour's time, when it gets a little bit cooler, I think we're going to get lucky with at least one of those options. So we're just going to slowly hang around the west. Yolandi, you're 14 from the US and you're asking about the lioness. There was actually other vehicles in the area that followed her this morning, and she walked into our property. She walked into our game reserve, and they ended up losing her in the block, and that's the only update. I don't know this lioness. I don't recognise her. I know the Torchwood Pride, the Styx Pride. I would be able to guess the Talamati Pride, and of course I know our Unkohomas. So I don't know who she is, and I saw the footage. She does look very sick, I'm afraid. But she has headed into our property. So because it got hot, most likely she's just laid down in the shade. She could be somewhere right there. We just can't see her because the vegetation is so thick. So that's the only update I have for you, I'm afraid. But I'm going to really work this area today and keep doing crazy fruit loops and hope that I pick up on someone, whether it be the dogs or the lioness. Sometimes you just have to loop the same area and the same area. Sometimes I'll drive this road, so my car tracks will be on the road, and then I'll loop and drive it again, maybe 30 minutes later, and there's tracks on top of my car tire marks. And that tells you that someone is here and someone is moving. Oh, lots of people are confirming it was a battalier and a black-chested snake eagle. Wow, thank you, everybody. And they had a little bit of a dispute in the air. So for battaliers, their wingtips turn up like this. So from very, very far away, when you're looking into the bright sun high up in the sky, you can normally tell that it's a battalier. We thought it was a vulture at first, because I know there was lots of vultures around this morning at this carcass. And then, of course, when you see the wings turn up like that at the end, you know, it's a battalier. They also wobble in flight. Oh, hello, mister. I think I just gave that poor impala a fright. Oops, daisy. Okay, I'm going to continue on this road called Mendoza. And as I do that, we are going to send you back across to James looking for tracks.
We are in the middle of a very large herd of elephants. Just trying to figure out the best way to stop, because I want to show you what I think is the biggest elephant here, and it looks like our big bull. There he is. Now, when you see an elephant is normally something that you look at and think, oh my, that's a big animal. But when you see the size of this bull compared with some of these others, you think to yourself, goodness gracious, the others look quite small. And they aren't. They're massive. But the size of that bull is impressive. Oh, we've been so privileged of late. The elephants have been all over the place, which is very special. Wolf, you're 6 years old and you want to know how big an elephant's foot is. Well, it's quite difficult to answer that question, because if I said to you, how big is a human's foot? You'd say, well, my foot is a size 10, children's size, and my dad's foot is a size 10 adult size, and his foot's much bigger than mine. So the same applies to elephants. The little ones that you can see have got little feet, and they're about the size of a dinner plate, the same size as the plate you have your supper off. And the big bull elephant that we're looking at there has probably got a foot the size of a serving platter. You know what a serving platter is, Wolf? It's like, I don't know, 3 dinner plates together. So maybe that helps you understand their different sizes. So they're born with quite small feet, and then their feet get big as they get older. Now, you two are the cleverest 6 and 3-year-olds that I've ever heard of in my life. Evie and Meredith, yes indeed. Elephants do eat different things in winter and in summer. In wintertime, they'll eat a lot more sticks and twigs and bark from trees. And in summertime, they eat mainly grass, and sometimes, if they can get it, fruit. But often there isn't much fruit around here. Lovely sounds of them moving through the grass. People are very afraid of elephants, but most of the time you don't need to be. Most of the time elephants are just like this, very peaceful. As long as you don't make a noise and irritate them, they're fine. Here comes one to say hello to us. Hi there. Just going to walk past. Nice shot. Full of delicious food. Not for us, but for them. Even our elephant herd normally don't get much bigger than 8 or 9. But then what happens is that they'll sometimes join up together, and so you'll get a bigger grouping of about, say, 12 or so, and maybe even up to 20. And I think this is one of those groupings. There look to be about 20 elephants around us here, and it'll be 2 herds, and that big bull who isn't part of a herd. Look at how many there are. There are lots of them feeding.
Big ones up there as well.
Yeah. No, Michelle, that's a really interesting question. Elephants don't sharpen or shape their tusks like rhinos do their horns. I think the ivory's much harder than rhino horn. I suppose if they really tried, they could, but their shapes are totally different, and yeah, it's just not something they do. Their tusks do change shape with use, but I don't think there's ever a conscious effort to make them sharp. Have you ever watched a rhino sharpening his horn? It's quite obvious what he's doing. Whereas elephants don't do that with their tusks. I'm just going to shift you slightly forward because there's some others coming around the corner, and I think they've been in some mud, which is quite fun. Just don't want to give them a fright and get too close. Let me go over here on the road. Should be a nice spot all right over here. And we'll just watch the big bull carefully. I think now you can get a really good idea of his size. Oh, he's huge. Akash, you're in India and saying that you know elephants love bamboo, and you're wondering if there is any here. Akash, there's no bamboo here, and African elephants are not bamboo eaters, really. Look at this big guy, he's so huge. He's going to see what this cow's wanting, or what she's doing now. He's testing her for estrus. He's testing to see that if perhaps she's ready to mate. And she's obviously decided, go away, you big man. So he's carried on moving. So quietly. That's a 6-ton animal. He weighs 6,000 kilograms. And he's moving so quietly. I can hear them talking to each other all the time. All of them staying in contact with their low rumbles. Look at the bull there. Have you got the bull there? Oh?
Sure.
Watch him. Shame that poor tree didn't enjoy that. And normally, it's interesting when they pull those tree branches off, they very seldom eat the whole branch. They most often just have a little taste and then move on or pull another one down. Alright, we're going to try and get one more view, I think, of these elephants while you head off to Eric and his wild dogs.
Two more wild dogs have come out from the bushes they were hiding in and came to join the other two on the road. So the two that we are looking at, I think, are the two that have just come out. And myself and Marcel have been sitting here for a little while just trying to put the puzzle pieces together and trying to figure out who is who in this pack. And we think that these ones might be a couple of the younger ones of the pack. And the reason we say that is looking at the ears of the wild dogs, they all seem very, very intact. So there's no little nicks or no little dents or little scratches in the ears that might have come with age with a few of the older wild dogs. And so this could be the litter that actually was born here on Ngala almost a year ago, maybe about 9-10 months ago now. And I think it was just the four of them actually, and they're still together. We've got a very, very strong bond between siblings, and no wonder they're sitting side by side like this. Get a really nice view of some of the patternings. And I know wild dogs are a very active species, and it's so exciting to watch them. So Grace and Isabella from Australia asked who is in control or who is in charge of a wild dog pack. And it's actually a couple. So you've got the alpha male and the alpha female within the pack. The alpha female is responsible for the breeding and the males for giving her the babies, I guess. And so those two will be the alphas, and then the rest of them will be I guess the helpers of the pack. So they'll go out and hunt and bring back food for the mother when she's suckling the cub, or the pups when they're still in the den site, and they come back and regurgitate the food for the alpha female. The alpha male will also do quite a lot of hunting, so he'll go out with them. He doesn't necessarily get food brought to him, but yeah, it's usually an alpha male and an alpha female. We were just saying how exciting it is to watch wild dogs on the move, and following them is probably one of the highlights of a guide's day. It's just so exciting. You get to race the vehicle around and you get to try and watch them hunt, and it's always this air of expectation, because you know that if wild dogs are on the move and they're trotting they're bound to stumble across a herd of impala that they're going to chase, even if it's a half attempt. So for them to be sitting and sleeping is actually quite nice, because we get to have a very, very close look at them and get to watch them like we don't usually do when they study or when they're running. So you get to look at a lot of the patterning, and it's just such a beautiful coat that they have. I mean, that white and black and that tawny color all blend in so well with one another, and they're all so different. I was hoping that some of them would be facing the same direction, so we all stuck towards us. So we could really compare the differences between them, but not really happening now. We are going to give these wild dogs maybe another 10 minutes. And I think because they are so full, there's very little chance of them moving and us getting to see them active like I was talking about just now. So if they don't get up and decide to drink or do anything cool in the next 10 minutes, then I think we're going to leave them be. If anything, they might move to a slightly different spot, and that's where they'll spend the night. And in the very early morning again, they'll be sure to be hunting and moving through this area. So I won't put any pressure on Rowan, but maybe you get to see the wild dogs in the morning. In the meantime, we're going to send you back to James with some elephants.
We've got our elephants here. This one's missing the end of his trunk. Just like that big bull. I don't know if you watched yesterday, but Nicky had a big bull that didn't have a whole trunk. And this one is the same, except this one's probably got a bit more of a trunk than he had. Now let's watch him feed carefully and see how he manages. So he won't be able to pick things up in the same way that a complete, or an elephant with a complete trunk will, because the two fingers on the end of the trunk are missing. But you can see, very healthy animal. In fact, I think it's a young cow. Lionel, an elephant's trunk works in exactly the same way that your hand works. So what happens is that it's a collection of muscles, all right? So all through the trunk there are different kinds of muscles and different kinds of nerve fibers, and they are connected to the brain with nerves via the spine. And when the elephant decides to do something, those nerves send a signal to the trunk, which then does what it wants them to. So if you pick something up, if you pick up your TV remote or you scratch your nose, what's happening there is that your brain is sending a message down to your hand saying, lift up, bring your fingers close to the nose and scratch. It's very complicated, but that's basically how it happens. And that trunk works in exactly the same way. So when the elephant decides to pick something up, the brain sends a complicated set of messages down to all the thousands of muscles in the trunk, and if everything is okay with the elephant, the trunk does what it's supposed to and picks up or breaks off a branch or scratches the ear or eye of the elephant, and that's how it works. Does that answer your question? Ah, and a beautiful Vernonia, a not Vernonia plant. Same species we've had, I think. Elephants absolutely everywhere. It's very special. Alrighty, we're going to go across to Lauren now, and she's got something quite sad to show you, but she'll tell you about that.
I have got something sad to show you, and I'm giving you a warning. This is not pleasant and it's not nice. We waited until the kids section was over. There's a reason I'm going to show you this. It is a carcass, so for any sensitive viewers, you may look away now. I'm going to jump out the vehicle first. I'm going to explain what we're looking at and why we're looking at it. So this morning, when people were following the lioness, oh, my microphone is caught. They actually followed her to this point. So the lioness walked this way, and as they came here, they discovered this scene. And it's very, very sad, everyone. I do realise that, but there's a reason that we're here. This is a fetus, and it's an elephant fetus, I'm afraid. The vultures have already been at it, which makes it very unpleasant. This is nowhere near full term. You can see it's not properly developed. The skin is not developed. It's very, very soft, and it's sad. It's really, really small, but this is a fetus of, I think, a stillborn elephant. I think the mother naturally aborted this fetus, and it all happened here. There's blood everywhere, knocked over trees, elephant dung. You can see the scenario that's played out, and I imagine there was a lot of distress and probably a lot of vocalizations as well. So the lioness from this morning actually walked past here, which led other vehicles to find this little fetus. She showed no interest, and she continued walking into Djuma. The vultures were here. The vultures have been onto this little fetus, but it's not full term. Of course, elephants carry the baby in their womb for 22 months, so I don't actually know how far on this is, but it's not full term. I think it was a stillborn, and it's really, really sad and slightly unpleasant. And you can see my foot next to the elephant's foot is absolutely tiny in all ways, shapes, and form. So we came back here. One, it's part of the bush life. Unfortunately, we see sad things. And two, to check if anyone was here. An update, is there any predators, is there any scavengers? And of course, just to share all that with you guys. So that is what happened after Trishala left the lioness this morning. Other vehicles followed the lioness, and this is what they found. So it's a very, very sad scene. But I think this happened in the wee early hours of the morning because, well, unfortunately that fetus is still soft. So I know many of you will be sad right now. I am sad too. So we're not going to hang around. But, oh, Kirsten, I just put my earpiece in. I'm not sure if you were talking to me then. The lioness walked this way. So, everybody's sad. No, I know, me too. I know it's hard to see, but it's part of nature. Ravi and I came here just to check what's the scenario, who's been here. Maybe there would be another predator on it, but we are going to pop our nose in and see if we can actually see any signs of the lioness. So as I do that, it appears that James has good news, and he's got some elephants approaching his car.
Well, they've gone now. We just had the most wonderful experience with this elephant bull. He came up so close, totally unfazed by us. Didn't give us a nasty look, didn't shake his head at us at all. He was just completely calm. It was really spectacular. Now there's some rattling testiculars calling, and it's around about here that the rumours of Tundi's tracks crossing back into Djuma were. Now, if you are a new viewer, Tundi's a 13-year-old leopard we've been following for a very long time. We've seen her new cubs twice. We think they're between 6 to 8 weeks old, and there was tracks of at least one cub coming this way. But at the moment we're in the middle of a huge, beautiful herd of elephants. This is the one in front of us now with the bit of trunk missing. It's quite hot out today. Sandy, I don't think that would be an accurate way to describe how elephants use their feet to hear. They can apparently feel the vibrations of other elephants stamping or walking through their feet. I mean, I guess that's picking up waves, isn't it? So yeah, technically, I guess it is hearing. I don't think that transfers to the ears, though, but I'm not sure how it works. But yes, they can apparently communicate tectonically through their feet. Just gorgeous stuff. I think there are probably 30 elephants in this area. And that's a youngster, obviously just enjoying this creeper. I still can't figure out what it is. If anyone would like to hazard a guess at the creeper that they are picking up off the ground. And if I sneak forward, if I can't just pick some up quickly. Oh, let's just sneak forward quickly. I mean, sneaking, obviously, with this great belching diesel is not possible, but moving in a semi-surreptitious manner. I can't see any of it here. I'm hoping one of them dropped a bit. Let's have a look at those ones. Yes, autumn sunset, they do seem very peaceful, and that's because they are very peaceful. They do not feel threatened by us, and therefore they are not trying to kill us, and therefore they are feeling very peaceful. And they are, in general, pretty peaceable animals. A lot of social animals, if you look closely at their makeup, you'll find that there's a great deal of upheaval, constant challenges to the hierarchy. Hyenas are a wonderful example of that. That hierarchy is enforced with violence and very rigidly enforced. It's not the same with elephants. With lions, they've got a relatively peaceable social structure, unless there's a takeover or there's food in the offing. And then the best friends in the world will fight each other, inflicting horrific scratches to the nose and face. And so, there's quite a lot of violence in that social structure too. Mongoose, yeah, pretty much, the hierarchy is strict and it can be pretty violent. Likewise, wild dogs probably not nearly as much, probably much less so, but it's definitely a hierarchy that is not particularly egalitarian in some ways. In many ways it is, because everyone gets to eat and they look after their sick, but only the alpha pair gets to mate. And in elephants, it's just not really like that. Baboon troops, where it's a proper tournament species, where if you turn your back for one moment, if you become slightly complacent about your status in the hierarchy, you'll be smashed by a rival. Chimpanzees, same thing. Monkeys, same thing. So to be born an elephant is to be born into a life that, while yes, of course there are traumas in every living being or living creature's life, but to be born an elephant, I think, is probably one of the most peaceful kinds of existence. Unless, of course, you're set upon by a human being, which changes things somewhat. There's a very little one coming out there, Owen. You see that? Just coming out. And they're constantly talking to each other. The whole time. And this trust between human beings and vehicles and elephants has only arisen because of constant tourist activity in this area. They've come to associate us with a really non-threatening entity. As long as you don't make a big noise and get too close when they're feeling a little uppity, it's all fine. Alright, I'm going to continue up this road, see if I can find some evidence of Tundi. You're going to go back to Lauren and find out what she's doing.
Good luck, James. Good luck with looking for the elusive one herself, who is not easy to look for. Full stop. Okay, we did a little bash through this block. It's actually a really beautiful block, but no signs of lioness. And of course, you can't track in the thick vegetation like that. So we have left the elephant, or the fetus, should I say. And I find it bizarre that the lioness showed absolutely no interest. Oh, this is Steenbok running for his life. We're not going to be able to get you. Gemma, you're asking, will the mother of the calf be identifiable? I'm guessing you mean, would we be able to tell a female who's just given birth, I think? I'm going to assume that's what you mean. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know. I actually don't know. She's obviously left. I think it happened either last night or the wee early hours of this morning. And that's just my guesstimate. I'm not sure if we would be able to identify. I think if we had a very, very close look at the female and her genitalia, possibly. But as for a moving female elephant that we weren't able to get up close with, I don't think so. I think we would have to really, really be able to inspect. And it's sad. It wasn't a birth. I think it was just a natural miscarriage or abortion. So it definitely wasn't full term. I think there's been a lot of distress there. It's a very sad scene. Looking at everything, you can tell there's been distress. There's blood patches everywhere. So I'm sure the mother is very distraught, but I don't think we would be able to identify her unless we really, really could get nice and close to them. That's my opinion, Gemma, but I'm honestly not sure. I really, really don't know. And obviously the vultures have really made a stab into that little fetus, and that's why the head is no longer there and there's a hole in the side. But I'm also intrigued to know what other sort of scavengers would come. Would any other predators pick up on the smell? I know it sounds sad, but it's also very intriguing to see what takes place at any sort of carcass. Who arrives first? Who then comes in? But obviously in this particular instance, it's very sad. I didn't want to show it during the first 45 minutes, but it's part of the story from this morning. And of course, everybody's talking about it. They stumbled upon it because of that lioness. Okay, so I'm going to cover a little bit more of the west, and if I don't get lucky, I'll move on. But for now, you guys are going to go back across to James and his elephants.
We've come out from where we were and onto the eastern boundary of Djuma to see if we can find the cat tracks, but, well, here we've got more elephants. It's just wonderful. Giant herd of them. She's not as comfortable as some of the others. Now here is her youngster, who is deeply disconcerted by our presence. There we go. Safe. You crossed safely. Well done. And another one who, I think it's the one trumpeted at us. No, it's not. That's behind us. One of them gave us a proper trumpet, a little one like that. Yeah, so now she's just going to wait for the little ones to move slightly away so that she can be between them and us. So all elephants, of course, have got a different kind of personality. All animals have different personalities, I think. And while some elephants will be more than comfortable to let their kids hang around us. Others will be more conservative and find it very difficult to allow their kids to get close to something like a vehicle or people. And it just so perfectly mirrors our own parenting styles, where some parents don't like their kids to leave the house at all. Some parents are much more laissez-faire about how things go, and most are somewhere in between. Bon après-midi, Camille. You are in France and wondering about why it is that elephants or any animals have got tails. Well, it depends on the animal. Elephants use their tails as a fly swatter, you can see there. There we are. Same with wildebeest, same with impala, same with giraffe. Dogs use their tails to communicate. Leopards also use their tails to communicate. Monkeys sometimes use their tails to climb. Cheetahs use their tails as a counterbalance when they're running. So there are lots of different reasons that animals have tails. Fish use their tails to swim. But I think you'll find that one of the main reasons that animals have made... I think this animal's blind in its right eye there. Look at that. Totally white eyes. Isn't that amazing? That's ghostly. He's not blind because he's looking at us with that eye. But it's totally white, the eye. Didn't see any of that rich amber in it at all. How interesting. Yeah, and it's lacking pigmentation on its legs. So it must be slightly albino. I don't know if it can be slightly albino, but it's definitely lacking pigment in some parts of its body. Let's go forward. So, Camille, I think you'll find that the actual reason that all animals, or so many animals, have got tails is that what the tails do is protect a very vulnerable part of the animal's body. So it covers the bottom in the males, at least in the females and the males, and then also the vagina in the females. And that's important because those are two openings into the body that parasites could get into. And if parasites get into those sensitive parts of the body, then the animal can get very sick. And so I think that it's very important for a lot of animals to have a tail. Then they've kind of developed through the course of hundreds of thousands of years into things that have other uses, like fly swatters or communication devices or climbing devices or counterbalancing devices. Does that make sense? And it's quite interesting. If you, I don't know if you've got a dog there, Camille, but if a dog is afraid, you'll notice what it does, that it clamps its tail close to its bottom, right? And it does that for probably two reasons. The one reason is because it's got glands there, and when it is afraid, it excretes from those glands, and it lets the animal that it's afraid of know that it's afraid, so it doesn't want that to happen. And the other reason is that it can then protect those very vulnerable parts of the body. We as human beings don't need that because we stand upright. And so our kind of vulnerable bits are much more protected. So I think that's why animals have tails. Make sense? That's the black-crowned chagra. Kirsten just saying that she thinks we've seen this elephant before with the blue eyes and the patches. I think she's right. I think we have seen it before. I know, the elephant's all the way down the road here. I'd love to get a picture close-up of that eye. Unfortunately, it's heading off into the next door reserve. So this boundary we cannot cross, and this is supposedly around about where Tundi came across, but the elephants are going to make it very difficult to find her tracks because they've walked all over the road now where she was. Beautiful sighting, hey? There are even more of them crossing the road just up ahead. Alright, let's go across to Eric. Try and figure out if there's some leopard tracks here. And if not, well, I guess we'll probably have another elephant sighting.
Those wild dogs didn't move a single muscle more, so we decided to leave them, and Marcel and I are now driving more, I guess, more in a northerly direction, so away from where those wild dogs were, back towards that very big Timbavati River. And this afternoon we are going to be spending some time in the open areas that we drove through briefly this morning, and maybe we get to see slightly more herds of zebras and wildebeests before we drop down into the river, where you never know, maybe in the heat of the day there might be some elephants that are digging for sand. There might be some predators that are out on the prowl. So that's what we're going to try and get to, probably within the next 30 or 40 minutes. In the meantime, like I say, we're looking for anything in particular, some interesting birds or anything like that we see. So Sawyer and Ngala, who are 5 and 7 years old, have asked what time do most animals move around, and I don't think there's one set time that you can say that each species will move. It just is very dependent. So Sawyer and Anna, it basically just depends on the temperature, I would say. If the temperature is nice and cool, then more animals will move around. If it's hotter, then more animals will go and find some shade. So you get nocturnal animals and diurnal animals. So animals that are active throughout the night are nocturnal, and diurnal are animals that are active during the daytime. And so you tend to find that the predators, like the lions and the leopards and the hyenas, because they like to move stealthily and not or unnoticed and not be seen, they like to move throughout the night because it's, number one, cooler, so that's temperature, like I mentioned, and then number two, they can get really close to their prey before they make an attack on them to try and get some food. Whereas all of the other animals who are trying to avoid getting eaten, like impalas, zebra, wildebeest, all sorts of things like that, they might be more active during the daytime, so they're moving around when the predators are sleeping. Freddie, who's 11 years old from England, has asked how many years I've been a game ranger, and it is, sure, I'll have to do the math in my head. Maybe you can help me, Freddie. So I was at Pinder for 3 years, and I'm at Ngala. I've been at Ngala for just under 2 years. So 3 plus 2, yeah, I've been guiding for about 7 or 8 years, I guess. No, I'm joking. I've been in the industry for 5 years and still loving it. Which is one of the really cool things about my job, is you get to go out and do what you love, which is really, really cool. Okay. All right, so we're going to send you straight back to Lauren whilst we're looking for these large herds that I've promised. She's got a male leopard, so let's go straight to her.
It's not just any male leopard, everyone. It is Tingana. My favorite of favorites. Davi and I just found him. Oh, he's heard something. I love this male leopard so much. Davi does too. He's my favorite, and he's back on Djuma. And he's actually really not too far away from our camp right now. He's just lying in the shade, relaxing. I did not expect to see him here. We literally just bumped into him. But where Tingana is positioned is more on the western side, and he's facing that direction. Now, I believe, from what I heard from James, this is the way the dogs ran. Now, I could be wrong. Davy, you were not with James this morning, were you? No. They headed in this direction, and the dogs are most likely still on the property flat. They're probably flat because it's hot, and they'll also be in the shade. But last year, October, Davy and I had one of the most incredible sightings with dogs first thing in the morning. It was freezing. And Tingana came onto the scene, and he actually stole the head of the duiker that the dogs had killed. And I sometimes wonder if all of these, this is just my personal theory, everyone, if all of these predators navigate around one another and steal from one another and scavenge from one another, I do not think leopards or Tingana would intentionally follow a pack of dogs, but I do wonder if he can hear them, or he smells them, if he then decides to go and investigate. Dogs are messy when they kill. They're fast, they're messy, they leave bits behind, and then they normally leave it and they go rest. I often wonder if Tingana has that knowledge and he knows that there's dogs there. They're going to make a kill. They're not going to attack him, and he can swoop in and, of course, pick up the scraps. Just a theory, everyone. You're welcome to disagree with me, as always. Oh, everybody's happy. I'm so happy. Hello, handsome. You're looking mighty fine. I can't really see his tummy from here, but he doesn't look skinny. I think he's fed. He's well fed. Oh, isn't he the best? Nobody would have heard him vocalizing this morning, which is interesting. Nobody knew you were here. No. How far away would you say we are from Camp Davy in meters? 400? I would say maybe a bit less than that. But I'll just say 400 to keep Davy happy. But I was going to say 300. Tingana, everybody's been asking you, sir, where have you been? He's not very interested in answering you, everybody. I think Davy and I had Tingana last, and we lost him. He went flat in a bush, and when we went back to see him, he was gone. You gave me the slip, Tingana. Live, actually. You did it live. Yes. Oh, look at that face. He is such a fine boy. But where he is positioned right now is just at the start of Zoe's off Vuotella Access next to camp. It's a good place to be right now in case the dogs do get active or there's any signs of this lioness. Quip. Quip. What a cool name. You're asking what's better for a leopard in terms of senses, their hearing or their eyesight. I believe their hearing. They do have good eyesight. And of course their eyes are designed with a special layer to see at night time. And this is called the tapetum lucidum. It's Latin, and I'm just trying to move around in my seat to be a bit more comfortable. And it essentially allows the light to reflect back twice onto the retina. We do not have this feature, and what that means is that they can see far better at night time than we can. And if you just take a little look under his eye, Davy's doing a great job here, you can see there's a white line. You see that white line under his eye and slightly over his eye? It's not eyeliner. This actually assists the light reflecting back into the eye, because white reflects, black absorbs. So this line actually helps. And the tapetum lucidum is also a factor that most nocturnal animals have. So his vision is good during the day and at night time, but his hearing is far better. And out of all the senses that Tingana has, I would say that his sense of smell, Quip, is the best. He's designed to read chemical cues. He's designed to pick up on chemical cues. That's how he understands and navigates his landscape. He understands things through reading or smelling, not reading, smelling hormones and pheromones and urine and feces. And as unpleasant as that sounds, that is how Tingana understands what's going on around him, more so than his eyes and his ears. You can see how scarred his face is. One of the signs that tells you he's an old boy. Spas, good to hear from you. You're asking about Tingana's mating recently? I have no idea. I hope not. Tingana? No, I'm only teasing. I really don't know. I haven't heard of him mating. Now, leopards, of course, mate for long bouts, long durations. They normally follow the female when she's in estrus to make sure that no other male gets to her. So the mating pair normally stays together for a little bit less than lions, normally around 5 days. It can go to 7, and they're very vocal. You normally hear mating leopards. So I haven't heard or seen any news about Tingana mating, but it's very possible. I actually witnessed Tingana mating with Tandy in January 2019, and it seemed to be a one-off affair. The sort of theory to that situation, there was 4 leopards in my sighting, and the theory was that Tandy was possibly trying to distract him away from Tlalamba and the kill. Now, I don't know, I really don't know what happened then, but it appeared to be a one-off. Tingana left, Tandy left, and there was no more romance for the 2 of them. So I really don't know, Spas, if he's been mating. But I hope so. I hope Tingana continues to, well, make love, spread his seeds, sow the wild oats, and continue his bloodline. Because he has fantastic genes. Janati? Janaki. I'm getting there. Are leopards the biggest threat for wild dogs? No, absolutely not. I actually don't think leopards are a threat. I really do not think that leopards would risk. Leopards are more cautious because they're solitary. They're out here on their own. You will get some leopards that do engage in battle more than others, i.e. hukamuri, but it's normally with other leopards. Generally speaking, leopards like Tingana will run. If there's a threat, they'll run. They got to get out of there. They got to protect themselves, or else they could risk serious injury or death. And if they're seriously injured, then they won't be able to hunt properly, which could inevitably lead to death. So I don't think wild leopards are a threat to wild dogs, but lions are. Lions definitely are. Hyenas and wild dogs, they have quite a unique relationship. Hyenas will chase wild dogs if there's more on their side, and vice versa. If there's more dogs, the dogs will chase the hyenas. But the biggest threat to wild dogs out here would be lions. We have had sightings in the past with WildEarth where lions have killed dogs, and it's very sad. But as for leopards, I really don't think so. I mean, if there was a one-on-one battle, of course, the leopard has the muscle power and strength, but otherwise, I really don't think they're a threat. Visual. I hope I'm saying your name right. Visual. Kirsten's saying I am. Would a male leopard ever fight a lion? It's possible. It's absolutely possible. But from what I've experienced out here in my time here, leopards run. They really do run. Male lions and female lions are much bigger. They really are. They're taller than leopards. They're far more muscular and just generally bigger. A lot more body mass behind them than a leopard has. And leopards do tend to run. I think if a lion caught a leopard, was able to sneak up on it, like the dark mane of Oka did to Corky, then they would fight back. But essentially, if a lion was charging at a leopard, even a lioness, they would run. I really believe they would run. especially Tingana. He's the Duke of Djuma, but he can be quite flighty. He's a bit of a scaredy cat, literally. Isn't that right, boy? Look at his big shoulder blades. Davy can give you a view of how magnificent... Oh, okay, maybe not. He doesn't want you looking at his shoulder blades. He wants you to look at his fluffy tummy. Ah, doesn't he look like a big teddy bear? But yeah, I'm sure you got a view there of his shoulder blades. They almost look out of proportion sometimes on leopards, but of course they're necessary for all those additional muscles that leopards have to allow them to hoist. That's why the shoulder blades are so big in comparison to other cats. I actually heard this morning someone thought Tingana was around, but I actually scoffed at them and thought, oh, I bet you he's wrong. I'll need to apologise now. He was right. Tingana was around. He's here. And I think maybe in an hour's time, when it starts to cool down a little bit, Tingana will get on the move and hopefully do some territorial patrol. Okay, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stay with my favourite man and watch him sleep, which is fun. And you guys are going to go all the way across to Eric and see what he has for you.
We've come to one of these open areas and found a massive herd of 3 impala rams. But as they're all running away from us, which is typical, they were up to something very, very cool. They were chasing each other around, and all 5 of them looked like they were pretty much exactly the same size. And I think there was just a bit of dominance and a bit of showing off going on between them, just trying to figure out who is claiming this land. And I'm sure you've heard, but to the new viewers, that impalas are now pretty much coming into the rutting season in full force, which means that all of the females are coming into estrus and the males are now competing for territory. And the male with the best territory is more likely to get the best or the most females. And you can see that one on the left-hand side, as the one on the right is approaching, it's just not letting it get close. So you would probably assume that the one on the right-hand side is a bit, the one on the left might not be in the mood to fight yet. But it is quite incredible how brutal they can get when they start fighting. They'll turn around, and when they can't decide who's bigger, that's when they'll start locking horns, and they'll hit each other with as much force as they can. And I mean, I don't think it's any coincidence that in the last 4 or 5 days, pretty much when these impalas have started to get very active, the rams at least, we've started to see more and more predators taking the opportunity. And we've seen wild dogs on a number of occasions. We've seen now 3 different leopard kills that have caught impala rams. And it's all to do with the amount of attention that these impalas are giving to themselves, which means that they're not spending enough time looking and scanning around like they normally would in normal circumstances. That one on the left there is rubbing his face up against a tree. Might see that one will go and rub over it. Look, yeah, you see, so it wants to claim this area, and that other one is not really challenging, so it's kind of backing away and not really putting up a fight. Just the other day we were sitting and watching 2 impala rams, and they were probably tussling for about 10 or 15 minutes, and they tussled and they would lock horns, and then they would almost run away, and then the one would turn around and try and fight again, and they would kind of figure out who was the stronger one, and they'll get closer and closer and closer to the vehicle. And it almost was like they didn't know that we were here, and we this massive vehicle in front of them with a very loud engine, and they literally came within a few feet of us. And at that stage, one impala just decided to give it one last push, and he managed to get under the one impala and lift up his head, and the impala got tossed, the other ram got tossed in the air, and literally maybe for about maybe 2 or 3 feet got tossed. I've seen an impala ram with its whole stomach sticking out of its guts from a horn. Yeah. So Hannah's asking, can a male impala get killed in a fight? And absolutely, yeah. I was just saying that I've seen an impala with a stomach, or literally its internal organs literally sticking out of a stab wound from a horn. They'll break each other's necks if they can't decide a winner. They'll fight very, very viciously. And once they've started holding their territory for a number of weeks, they start to lose condition because they're not spending that time looking after themselves. They're not cleaning themselves of ticks. They're not eating. They're not drinking as much as they normally would. So they start to lose condition. And once they get displaced by a male who's been waiting a little bit longer, then they're very vulnerable to predation. So to things like lions, wild dogs, leopards, even cheetah would go after these impalas. I've just seen behind us, there's actually another group of impala who might be closer to the road. We might start heading there. So Hoffman's asked a question about if an impala's horn breaks, does it grow back? And I think it just depends on the extent that it breaks off. Unfortunately, they're not like antlers, so it's not keratin, it's not hair that grows out from the skull every season, it's a bone that grows from the age of about 6 months or so. And if that gets broken off at the base, then that horn will never grow back. If it gets broken, I suppose it won't regrow, but you might find that the root might grow a little bit more and you'll never really get a pointy horn again. You'll get this lopsided, one horn normal, one horn with a broken off tip, and it might grow a little bit, but I don't think it would grow substantially. Whereas deers and moose and elk, they've all got antlers, so when they break off every season, they regrow and get bigger and bigger every season. Oh, cool. All right, so as I was saying that these impalas have come out into the open, I turn the vehicle around and we watch them one by one moving off into the bushes. So we might try and find them again around another road, but in the meantime, we're going to send you back to Lauren with that leopard.
My favorite leopard. He's woken up a little bit, changed positions slightly, but still enjoying his snooze. Now during the day you can actually see the tapetum lucidum. It's a layer that's at the back of the eye. I'm going to show you a diagram in just a bit. And it's actually Latin for bright tapestry. I've heard, well, different translations. I've also heard that it's Latin for brain tapestry. So if any of you viewers can speak Latin, do let me know. But I think it's bright tapestry. And this special layer sits behind the retina, right at the back of the eye. It's not visible to us when we're looking into someone's eye. And what it's doing is just allowing visible light to be reflected back through the retina once again. And therefore, it increases the amount of light that is available to the photoreceptors that we have in our eyes, or that Tingana has in his eyes, should we say. So it's just giving the eye more light to see. And I do have a diagram for anyone who's interested. I have a folder in my phone for all sorts of useful diagrams, and I have my porky pointer. So this is AI, not necessarily a leopard's. And you can see this is the pupil in the iris. This is the part of the eye that we can see when we look into another eye. And right at the back, there's the retina. This first yellow line is the retina. And behind that, the grey sort of line, or the grey band, is the tapetum lucidum. So the light's coming in through the lines, and it normally hits the retina, as it does with humans, and this light is reflected back out. But when you have a tapetum lucidum, it just allows the light to be reflected twice. That's all it does. But this special layer is essentially what we are seeing when we spotlight. So at nighttime when we're spotlighting, we're not actually trying to see the animal itself, we're just trying to see eye shine. As soon as we see eye shine, we take the spotlight off and we do know that there's an animal of some sort staring back at us. We don't use artificial light on the animals, of course, but once we've spotted the eye shine, we do know that someone's there. Hey Young, you're 12 years old from Malaysia. It's so good to hear that we have viewers from Malaysia. I used to live there for a little while in KL. It's a wonderful place. And you're asking about leopards' eyesight, whether they can see in colour or black and white. So I think they can see. It was always thought that they only see in black and white. It was also thought that domestic dogs only see in black and white. They definitely have less colour detecting cones that we have in our eyes, much less. So they don't see the full spectrum of colours. Hold on 2 seconds. I'm just going to turn that radio down. So yes, they have less colour detecting cones than we have, so they don't see the full spectrum of colour. Some animals can see more colours than we can. They can see infrared light and UV light, but we see less than that. And Tingana, or any leopard, would see even less than us, but they can see colours. It's a bit of a myth that mammals only see in black and white. However, they rely a little bit less on colour differentiation than we do. We are highly visual mammals, humans. I'm talking about, we are of course animals, and we're mammals, and we're very visual. And it's actually said that visual information, when it's presented to human, reaches the brain 60,000 times faster than it would if it was text. So humans are very visual. We rely on visual information, whereas Tingana does not. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. He's highly olfactory. But he can see in colour, to answer your question, just not as well as we can. And he's deeply snoozing right now. I often wonder what leopards dream about. What do you think he's dreaming about? Impala? Banana and peanut butter? Sorry, Kirst, one more time with that question. Aha. Jocelyn, you're asking, why do cheetahs have the tear marks under their eyes or running down from the tear duct of their eyes, but not leopards? Now, I'm going to answer that question, but also show a diagram that I've showed before, just so that everyone can understand what I'm talking about. Just need a minute to find it. But cheetahs are actually primarily diurnal, and what that means is they're more active during the day. So they are highly visual, but just going on what we've been talking about, they're far more visual predators than the likes of leopards. And they're more active during the day. We have seen cheetah hunt at night. They like to hunt at night, especially during full moon. But primarily, they're daytime hunters. And why this is because that it allows them to occupy a different niche from the likes of leopards and lions. I say this regularly, but if all the predators were the same, they wouldn't be able to survive or thrive. They all occupy different specialized niches, and the cheetah's niche is speed and to be active during the day, to avoid leopards, to avoid lions and any other predators. So the tear marks that you're referring to, let me choose a good picture. I'm actually not going to bend the spine of my books. I hate bending spines of books. I'm very against it. Let's go for this one, Davi. Anyone who does it is very naughty. I would shout at you if I saw you do it. Okay, I can't get a grip on this book. But what I'm trying to show you is this is a cheetah, and this is the black tear marks. So, going back to the fact that cheetahs are diurnal, they hunt during the day. In the sunlight, it's said to assist with their vision. So just like the leopards, I just spoke about Tingana having a white line under his eye. to reflect light into his eye. Cheetahs don't want that. They don't want light going into their eye because it's bright, it's sunny. They want the light to go away from their eye. So it's said that these black tear marks running down a cheetah's face is to assist with their vision during the day, especially in the really, really hot, sunny days. In African climates, especially in places like the Masai Mara, or even out here in Djuma. And that's the reason they think that cheetahs have these black lines running down their faces. And leopards don't need that because they're primarily nocturnal, so they need the white lines. Okay, we're going to sit and watch my favourite man snooze. As I do that, you guys are going to go across to James for an update.
Please give me an update on the pack of dogs from this morning.
We are driving sort of in the vicinity of Tundy's Den again. We stuck our heads in there just on the off chance that, you know, we'd missed all the tracks and they'd come down again. No, I didn't see anything there. I can still hear elephants all around here, so I don't know. I suppose one day I shall be rewarded with a decent sighting of them, but that day might not be today. There's also so much water around that her movements are less and less predictable, especially as she has little ones. Anyway, there were some more elephants up ahead here that we heard when we were sitting at the den site. Well, what was the den site? And I don't know what tracks they saw because I couldn't see any. Rudy, I think the presence of other animals makes animals know or become aware of or perceive that they need to have a territory. So, territory size, for example, in this part of the world is almost exclusively defined by, there's the elephant standing right above the den site, is decided almost exclusively by the amount of prey that there is in an area. And so once an animal becomes comfortable in an area and then it becomes aware of others that might be competition to them, it starts to stake out an area that it can defend. And that, I think, is how they become aware of it.
Okay, come.
I don't think so, no. I think that's a fairly average-sized bull. Let's carry on going. He smells very strong, this elephant. I think he may be coming into must. Which many of you will understand is the time of heightened testosterone of the big bulls. Oh, hello, big fella. You need a shower, man. You're a smelly boy. Eee. Remember I said how comforting the smell of elephants was and that it smelled a little bit like sort of horses? Yeah, he's not a small fellow, this. And he's lost a tusk, broken off, or it's just very, very tiny. Well, in this particular case, the smell is like an enormous stable yard of 120 horses that hasn't been mucked out for about 4 weeks. And if you look very carefully, Owen, between his back legs, you will see that he is dribbling urine. And that is the classic condition of must. So this elephant is in must, and he has got what's known as green penis syndrome, GPS. Is he? Must. M-U-S-T-H. As far as I remember, and as I've said to you, my brain only has 1 megabyte's worth of data in it, so new stuff stays and old stuff goes. Must is a word that comes, I think, from Hindi, or another language spoken in India and is used to describe the heightened emotional state that male elephants experience when they are ready to mate. I've seen a number of human beings that are in must sometimes, but that's another story. Let's go around the corner here. He's not a massive bull. I think he's probably about 30 years old. And there's another one just off to his right-hand side. You'll hear people say, don't go near an elephant in must. He'll definitely kill you, flatten you, murder you, wreak havoc upon you. And, well, as you can see, that's not necessarily true at all. What I like to think about, or like to liken it to, is that this elephant is very easily irritable, but the same things will irritate him. It's like when you feel irritable. If everyone leaves you alone, you're fine. But if somebody does something little that would normally slightly bug you, it'll really irritate you if you're feeling irritable. It's the same thing when these elephants are in must, I think. Peahart, they do get dehydrated. Absolutely, if they're not careful, and so they must drink much more during must than they would otherwise. But you can see this must bull is not exactly trying to tip the Mahindra over and stomp on us. Oh. Claudia, you said the word must comes from a Persian word meaning drunk. Well, I suppose they are drunk in a way. Is there nobody from India who can tell us if must doesn't perhaps also have an Indian origin? It's quite possibly been bastardized so many times over the years that it's unrecognizable. There's another elephant in there behind this thick bush. I'm just going to continue following our must bull at the moment, because this is where I wanted to go. Ooh, that's a nice smell, isn't it, Owen? How would you liken it? How would you describe it? It's not unpleasant, though, is it?
No, it is unpleasant.
You think it is unpleasant? Owen thinks it is unpleasant. I don't think it's too unpleasant.
It's like very badly neglected farmyard, a mixture of chickens.
It's an interesting one. Owen says a very badly neglected farmyard where chickens, pigs and cows are kept. And the odd skunk.
Yes, the odd human corpse thrown in.
I don't think it's that unpleasant, I must say. He's very chilled. Urdu, not Urudu, my dear, Urdu. So apparently an Urdu word, and that makes sense, I'm being told, because Urdu was spoken in Persia and in parts of India. And does it mean drunk? That does make sense to me. Some Indian people now saying it can also mean happy. As I said, I mean, it's probably changed meanings 100 times over the years, but Urdu is probably a good origin for it. Is Urdu still spoken anywhere, or is it a language used largely sort of poetically? I remember we had an Indian guest once who fell head over heels in love with a rather substantial German woman who was the receptionist at the lodge where I worked. And one night, after a couple of glasses of black and white whiskey. That's the only thing he drank. He regaled her with poems in Urdu, which were very beautiful, but which she did not understand even a tiny little bit. Also, she was very honored to have heard them from him. Okay. Thank you, Shravant. This is starting to make more and more sense. You said is indeed used in Hindi, but it means carefree in Hindi, and it most likely is derived from the Persian word. So, shall we, by Persian, are we going to accept that it's Urdu? I'm just giggling at the... Many people saying that Urdu is still spoken in lots of places, including Pakistan. Fascinating. Thank you to all of you who are making contributions to this, especially those of you from that region. It's wonderful, wonderful information, and it just feels so enriching to have people talking to us from all over the world, especially those who have first-hand experience of these languages. Magical. Right. So many saying that drunk isn't quite accurate enough, but intoxicated is a much better word. Now that makes perfect sense, because he's certainly intoxicated by the heightened hormones he's experiencing in his body. Great. So we'll call it intoxicated. Word of origin Urdu. Still spoken in various parts of India, Pakistan, and maybe even Persia or Iran. I wonder if this elephant has any conception of what we've been discussing, and how it is that his slightly elevated emotional state is being described as we're describing it. I don't think so. I don't think the elephant speaks a word of Urdu. I don't think he speaks any English either. No Shangan. Now he's listening and looking, and I wonder if there isn't a herd of elephants up ahead that maybe he's picked up. See how ponderously he walks. Just magic. As he disappears, we'll send you back out to the west to where Tingana is lying in the grass.
Sorry, I was just directing someone else, and there's other vehicles that also want to see you. Sometimes I feel like Tingana looks right at me. He meets your eyes, eye contact. It's incredible and makes you feel very, very small. You realize how, well, vulnerable we are. And talking of where names come from, must is what I also learned has Persian origins and means completely intoxicated. Because it was originally thought that elephants were drunk or intoxicated when they were in must. It wasn't fully understood. But the word carnivore, or carnivora, which is the order of animals containing all the carnivores, is actually Latin, and what it means is flesh devourers. So that's definitely quite accurate, but not so pleasant. I think carnivora is slightly more pleasant to say than flesh devourers. And of course, it's your placental mammals, those mammals that have placentas. That includes your canids, which is your wolves and your dogs. It includes your mustelids, which is your weasels and your honey badgers. Your felids, which is your cats, like Tingana. Your ursids, which is your bears. And what one am I forgetting? There's another one. Seals, your pinnipeds. They're also carnivores. All included in the order Carnivora, which means the flesh devourers. Liam, you're 10 years old from Joburg. And it's just great to have you on board, Liam. Tingana's name, isn't it beautiful, Tingana? It actually means shy. Can you believe it? This cat was thought to be shy when he first arrived here. I can assure you he is not shy anymore on any level, but that's where his name comes from. It's Shangaan, which is one of the local languages here, and when he first arrived to Djuma at the age of 3 years old, now remember he's now 13, he was skittish around vehicles and very, very shy, so therefore they named him Tingana. But he's definitely not shy anymore. You can see that, but he still has a beautiful name. I often think if I ever get a dog when I'm older and I'm slightly more settled, I'll call it Tingana. So I don't know how long we'll have Tingana for, but hopefully he'll be a old boy and he'll keep going strong. Leopards can live right up to the age of 18 in the wild. But of course we'll follow him for as long as we can. And if you do enjoy jumping on the safaris and following all our leopards, just like Tingana, then you can head over to the website www.wildearth.tv and support us in any way that you may wish to. We need your support. Tingana does too. The person that I told me Tingana was around, and I didn't believe I was actually just pulled up to the sighting, so I just let him know that you were right and I was wrong. I gave him that face. And he gave me the I told you so. That was the interaction that just took place there. Maybe sawing was heard this morning, I'm really not sure. Tingana is of course a dominant territorial male, which means he has to saw, he has to scent mark, he has to let everybody know that he's here, or else he's not very dominant and he's not very territorial, is he? It's really important that he's vocal, he's visible, and not just in terms of sight, but also smell. He must keep up his territory. Hukamuri also uses this area. I've seen the hook in this exact area that Tingana's in. So I think this is a sort of boundary line for them too, I feel. Now it's fluid. Maybe Tingana will push back and Hukamuri will come and push back. But I feel this road we're on, it's called Zoe's. I feel like this is the sort of boundary line between their territories. Naturally it will fluctuate, but this is where I feel they clash. Not physically. I'm talking about their territories, of course. Crystal, you're asking about spot patterns. Now, Tingana's not given us the best view of his spots, I'm afraid. It's the top line of the whiskers. So there's many, many whiskers, vibrissae, you can see there. And there's sort of different lines of spots. Now, when you're trying to identify a leopard, this is not necessarily the same for a lion, but when you're trying to identify a leopard, you will, of course, look at that very, very top line. I think Darby's managing to show you it right now. And you count the spots. Some leopards are the same. It's not the case that every single leopard is different. That's wrong. Now, Tingana's a 5-5, so 5 on the left and 5 on the right. But there will be other leopards in the area that also have a 5-5. So you've got to kind of pick out different features. And also some leopards can be uneven, so some will have 3 on one side and 2 on the other. That was the most dramatic yawn I have seen in a long time. The other vehicle are also laughing at that yawn. Oh, well, there you go. That's how Tingana yawns, everyone. Very, very dramatic. Hi, guys. So yes, every leopard will have a different spot pattern. It's just a way for us to try and identify them. You can't name an individual. You cannot name a leopard or a lion or even a wild dog if you cannot identify them individually. You have to be able to pick out those features, or else it could be any leopard. And that's why we actually don't name impala. As much as I would love to give the impala names because they're critical to the ecosystem and they're gorgeous, we don't, because we can't pick out the individuals. They all look the same unless you have an impala that's maybe got 3 legs or missing a horn. Then of course you'll be able to identify it, but otherwise it's almost near impossible. You can see the flies are annoying him. That's why he's twitching his ear like that. I hope some of you managed to get fantastic screenshots of that yawn. If you did, send them in. Hashtag WildEarth. That was some yawn. I think we should all yawn like that, with our tongue lolling out. There's a plane going overhead. As this mystery plane flies away, we're going to stay here, of course, but we're going to send you guys across to Eric, who's busy driving.
We are back. I think we had 1 or 2 technical difficulties there, but I think just because we went down into the river, it might have been quite low, so interference with the big trees and everything. But if you look to the right of us, you might see the trees are starting to grow quite tall, which means that we're right on the bank of the river. And we've decided to come across the river onto the northern bank, so we now, the river's on our right, and we're looking for any tracks or signs of a lioness who has been spending lots and lots of time in this area, and she keeps coming back and forth. She goes out to drink and comes back to the same spot, goes out to hunt and comes back to the same spot. And the reason she's doing that is because we think that she's denning in one of the bushes in the river, and this is the first time that she is denning, and that she might potentially have cubs. And so we're treating her with the utmost respect. We're trying to give her as much distance as possible. We're trying to reduce the impact that we have on her. So we're not putting any pressure on her. And once she's ready, we'll let her show us her cubs. So we're wanting to see if we can maybe try and catch her perhaps on the way back towards her den site, which is almost directly to the right of us now, or perhaps maybe leaving the den site on her evening's hunts. Now, she's part of the pride that we were trying to look for this morning. And that pride, after tracking them for several hours, one of the vehicles noticed tracks that might have crossed one of our boundary roads on the eastern side of the reserve. So the rest of the pride is more to the right. There is a chance that they might try and link up, especially if they've got food. This lioness will try and look for a quick, easy meal. She's got lots of, I guess, using lots of energy to provide milk for hopefully hungry, healthy cubs. Now, as we do that now, the sun is starting to set. You can see the road is completely in shade. I believe lots of you are saying that you want to see lion cubs, and me too. The last set of lion cubs I saw was with that main pride that we've been seeing quite regularly. And so it's really nice to see if we'll be able to see them, hopefully within the next 2 or 3 weeks or so. I think one of the most amazing sightings to watch is a big lioness who's completely strong and powerful, just be so gentle and pick up a tiny cub and carry it. I've managed to see that once, and one time only. But like I was saying, as the sun is setting, the temperature's cooling down. It's starting to become a bit darker. And that allows more room for movement for these predators, so they might feel a little bit more comfortable moving and not getting noticed. And we're heading along the river. You can see how dense it is, so there's lots and lots of to hide, lots of opportunity to sneak up to something and get really, really close, and that suits leopards perfectly. That's exactly how they like to hunt and move around. So as we're driving through this area, Marcel's, not Marcus, he's going to be looking for things like a leopard's tail that's got that white, similar to the wild dogs we saw earlier. That's something that we notice. And if they're wanting to move stealthily, bare patches of ground like this, so along the roads or perhaps prominent game trails that are leading down to the river on the left and the right hand side of the road. It is starting to become a beautiful evening. The lighting is just perfect. I've promised lots of things on this game drive. Yeah, I think there's just this negative magnetic field around our vehicle, and every time we get close to an animal, it moves off. But I promise, zebras, I'm not giving up yet. Actually, that if you find sort of or wildebeest, anything other part of the people are planning things. How have you seen dogs? I mean, you have to do something. Yeah. If you've been watching Ngala and Djuma in the last couple of days, wild dogs almost seem to be drively appearance. Yo. So Sean has asked me what my favorite sighting ever has been. And yeah, exactly. Kirst is saying no pressure, and I think it's such a tough one to answer because we get to spend so much time, you get to watch so many different amazing interactions. But I think the most recent one that comes to mind, well, actually, it was probably one of my first 2 or 3 months here at Ngala. So not the one that I was just about to talk about. But we were following lions in the morning, and it was starting to warm up, and it was the lions weren't really moving with any intent. It looked like they were trying to find a spot to rest for the day. It's what lions do when it's hot. They go and rest in the shade and not move anywhere. And we followed for probably about 20-30 minutes, and then just kept on walking. All of a sudden, one of the lionesses in the front just went into that typical crouching position, and the whole pride's body language completely changed, and we knew that something was on. And we tried with all of our might. We were scanning through the bushes. We were looking for anything that these lions had seen. We hadn't seen anything, and they moved another maybe 50-60 meters through the bushes. We repositioned, and that's when my tracker saw the tail of a giraffe swinging from side to side. And we watched as these lions got closer and closer and closer, and then all of a sudden that lead lioness took off, and she sprinted after these giraffe. What we didn't realize is these giraffe had a very small youngster with them, and probably within about 8 seconds, I would say, this lioness had grabbed onto the baby giraffe and brought it down and killed it. And we got to see the whole thing from start to finish, which is absolutely incredible. So I think so sad because it was a giraffe, but amazing that the lions got to feed themselves for another 2 or 3 days. Yo, off to a great start talking about, yeah, it is very sad to watch it happen, but luckily it happened very quickly, and we could see that it didn't suffer too long. One of the hard things to watch was the mother returning and checking to see if the youngster was around. But she stuck around for a little bit, and then she decided to move on. So that for me is probably the thing to. Okay, yeah, so I've put on it not just zebras talking about baby giraffe dying, so we're going to send you back to Lauren. You're still with that leopard.
Oh, baby giraffes. I had an awful sighting in the Masai Mara. I think Kirsten will remember this very well, of a young calf who died shortly after birth, a giraffe calf. And yes, Kirsten remembers that it was very difficult. The mother stood for days on end, chasing away hyenas, exhausting herself, not eating. I think she was drinking, but she wasn't eating, and she was absolutely exhausting herself to protect the calf, but the calf was dead. And the whole of the North Clan were around. Oh, as much as I love the North Clan, they are one of the most incredible clans that you will ever come across of hyenas. But yes, that wasn't easy. It was a tough sighting. And going back to the elephant that we saw earlier, you know, nature's nature, and things are tough. Some people get used to it. I don't. I think I'm an emotional person anyway, and I find it difficult. I find it difficult to see certain things. Some things bring so much joy, like the cubs, and then some things are just hard to see, like that elephant fetus who didn't make it. Oh, another yawn. This is our 6th yawn, everyone. Amazing. That is a saw, everyone. That is a leopard's saw. They do not roar. That is a leopard's vocalization, and I think it is just the best noise that you will hear out here. That's him saying, everybody, I'm here. Tungana McLeopardface is here. And this is my domain. Everyone's happy to hear the sawing. It's incredible. I love that noise. It's very unique. We often try and, well, we try and do it, and I can't. It's a very, very difficult sound to replicate. And it's actually a technique of the breathing as well as vocalizations through the voice box. It's done on the exhale and the inhale. Tungana, you just poked yourself in the eye there with a blade of grass. I saw that. He's on the move, everyone. He's right behind the car, so I'm not going to turn on my car just yet. He's listening. He's looking. He's actually not as full as I thought he might be. He's got that saggy skin hanging on the underside. Sorry about our aerials, but I don't want to turn on the engine just yet. He's about 5 meters, 15 feet away from the vehicle, and I don't want to turn on. Andrea, you're asking how close are we able to drive until...
Before we get scared.
Before we get scared. Tungana's actually... Everybody don't get excited, he's gone flat again. Tungana's actually very, very calm around vehicles. I've driven very, very close to Tungana, within meters. And he's normally okay. He's very habituated to vehicles. He knows they're not a threat. They maybe annoy him. Or we annoy him. But, I mean, they're really not a threat to him. We give him space. I think we could go around that way, Davy. What do you think? Yeah. And we don't charge at him. We never steal his kills. Imagine that. We just never make him feel threatened, so he's very, very accustomed to vehicles. But if I was to jump off the vehicle and run at him, he would be absolutely terrified and he would run. Tungana's not good on foot. Now, many of you know, but maybe some of you don't, we actually do live bushwalks. We're not doing them at the moment because of lockdown scenario, but we do live walking through the bush. We have a game scout with us, but the cameraman and the guide go out and they walk on foot. And we do it live. We talk about all sorts of things from vegetation, trees, grass, flowers, insects, tracks. because it's easier to see when you're on foot. And of course we do track the cats. We've had lions on foot, we've had leopards on foot, elephants, buffalo. Now of course you have to be trained to do this, of course you do, but Tingana's not good on foot. If you do encounter this boy whilst on foot, he'll run. He's very, very skittish. Just going to turn this radio off. It's been very annoying. But yes, for the vehicle, he's really, really accustomed to them. I think as long as you let him hunt and snooze, he's perfectly fine. Now, we were talking about carnivores earlier, or I was. There's different types of carnivores. Not every carnivore is simply a carnivore, if that makes sense. It probably doesn't. I am going to explain that. Not all carnivores just eat meat. Some carnivores will supplement their diet with vegetation and potentially fruits or any sort of yummy seeds that are lying on the ground. So the three different types of carnivores are hypercarnivore, mesocarnivore, and hypocarnivore. And I'm sure many of you can figure out what that means. But hypercarnivore is what Tingana is. So they're obligate carnivores and they cannot properly digest any sort of vegetation in any way, shape or form. They're not designed for that in terms of their stomach. So they are said to eat over 70% meat. And the proper definition of that is a hypercarnivore. They may accidentally eat some vegetation, or they may fancy snacking on a blade of grass one day. Bless me, everyone. I apologise. I just sneezed. It's not a safari with Lauren if she doesn't sneeze. Sorry. I'll go back to what I was saying. So yes, most hypercarnivores, lions, leopards, they have that special carnassial shear, which is the molars that are designed in such a way at the back of the mouth. There's one on the upper jaw, one on the lower jaw that cut in together in a sort of slicing mechanism, and that allows them to cut through flesh as well as hold the prey with their dew claw and then of course eat it. That's a hypercarnivore. Now, mesocarnivores depend on meat for at least 50% of their diet, so it's a little bit less than hypercarnivores. And along with meat, they will eat vegetation, fungi, yes, some carnivores eat fungi, or maybe even fruits. Normally, mesocarnivores are your sort of small to mid-sized species. So let's say, for example, raccoons, foxes, coyotes, they will be described as mesocarnivores. Now, hypocarnivores are the ones that eat the least amount of meat, less than 30%. So I guess you could potentially call them omnivores, as they will eat berries, seeds, nuts, fruit, vegetation. So you really could call a hypocarnivore an omnivore. But that's the sort of separation of carnivores. They're not all the same. In that order Carnivora, they come in at different levels. My nose is now running. Isn't that wonderful? So as I admire these gorgeous eyes of Mr. Shy over here, we are going to send you back across to James and his elephant.
This is that massive, massive bull that came towards us earlier. And then you just saw walk past us, and he's very confiding and very friendly, unless you happen to be this Marula Tree that he's now feeding on. I think he pushed it over very recently. I'm going to give him a minute to show himself, or I'm going to move so that you can get a decent view of his head, because he is a big bull. He's got a good set of tusks on him. Let's just see if he sticks his head out here. Here he comes. No? Yes? Okay, I'm going to sneak slightly forward. I've done this slowly, just checking to make sure that he's comfortable with us, and that he's not worried about us, and he doesn't seem to be, so I'm just going to keep going. Are you wondering if this elephant has a name? Not the one that we've given him. He may have a name in Elephant Society. Perhaps his name is Jeff or Harold, William, Dirk, I don't know. Yes, maybe it's Harold, Hazard to his friends. Hazard is not showing us his impressive tucks yet. Come on, Hazard. I want to see your tucks. I'm shy. Just let me have a little sleep here. Very impressive eyebrows, very impressive eyelashes. He's just listening to us. I'm just going to let him relax. He's not exactly tense, I must confess. It looks like he's going to sleep, actually. Yum. His mouth is so big that it acts like an amplifier. There, he has now revealed his spiky tooth. He's also eating with his mouth open. I think he's literally going to sleep. His eyes are shut. He is so relaxed that he is going to sleep. So he's eating the whole branches there. He's not just eating the bark and then spitting out the wood. He's actually eating the whole branch. Donald, normally it's once a year that they go through must. But I think it's fairly variable. Sometimes it lasts a long time, sometimes it lasts just a few days, especially if they're younger. Sometimes they can go through a few months in continual must. It really does look like he's trying to hide, doesn't it? Behind the enormous tree that he just destroyed. Interestingly, quite a lot of this Marula's rootstock is still in the ground, and I suspect the tree might survive. I remember once we went to retrieve Okay, sorry, I'll tell that story later. Let's go across to Eric, who's got a bird of prey of some description.
So you'll never believe it. We just had a really beautiful bird called an African hawk eagle. And it's amazing. It's a little known fact. And some people call it the zebra of the sky. It's black and white with lots of stripes. So I think it pretty much counts as a zebra for the afternoon. So that's my job done. We're going home. No, but it did fly away, unfortunately. It was a really nice view. It was perched right down. I believe people are saying it doesn't count. I beg to differ. This is my game drive, not yours. No, but it was sitting right down on the ground and it had that beautiful orange light on it. But unfortunately, it flew away literally moments before you were about to switch over to me. So just before it gets dark, we're going to head down one other road, see what else there is to offer. Just one of those things. It's amazing, and I think it works out a lot more than you realize that when you're so desperate and so wanting to see an animal, it almost feels like that you don't find it. The moment that you've seen one, or you don't even think about it, they just start popping up around every corner. So we're going to go and check to see if that elephant bull is still sleeping, and we're going to send you back to James.
Here is our elephant bull. He is still doing a bit of a snooze. I'm not going to hang around with him for long now. The light is starting to fade, and I want to just try and get into a position where if those dogs do pop out, we might have a chance. So we'll just let him show us his tusks once more, and then I think we'll move on. Rather, elephants normally stand when they sleep, like this guy was doing. Sometimes they lie down, but not for long, and normally the little ones lie down just for a little while. And then they'll stand up and move around again. They don't sleep much, not nearly as long as human beings do. All right, let's move on from here. We'll carry on and see if we can't get lucky with sommet else. This guy's having a nice snooze in his tree. It's just so wonderful. I know it wasn't very action-packed, but how wonderful to have an elephant bull that size, I'd say 35 years old, and we were, what, maybe 5 meters from him? Maybe 8 meters? Didn't even react to us at all. Very special indeed. A great testament to the trust that's built up over the years here between us and them. Ian, elephants don't cry. Elephants don't have tear ducts. We've had this discussion a few times, so that's why I know. I'm not sure about other animals. Have I ever tears on another animal before? I really feel like I should know the answer to this question, but I'm afraid I don't. Also, I don't know where they would cry or when they would cry, you know. I think elephants produce a lot of moisture from their eyes, and that's why they get that kind of white gunk that they get in the sides, like we get sleep almost. But I don't know how many animals actually are able to produce tears, and whether it's associated with emotion at all, I don't know. Nice question, that. Thank you. Oh, there's a beautiful horizon there. Lovely sky. I'll just get behind the tree here. See if we can get a nice view of it. The sun's gone down over the Drakensberg. carry on. Sun has gone. All right, let's go over to Lauren and see if she's had some luck with those hyena cubs.
I was going to keep it a surprise for you. I'm not sure how you all knew that. It's supposed to be a surprise. Bear with me. Okay, can you see Dobby? Okay, I don't see anything, but apparently they've been out and about, so let's just hold on. It's not the best view of Ribbon's face, of course. I think I can see them. I can see them, Dobby. Hello. Hello. Hello, little one. This is my surprise for you all. I'm just thinking we could be in a better position here, Dobby. What do you think? Are you happy? Okay. Your ears have popped. Now, how much do they not look like hyenas? Oh, we're going for the nipple. We're not quite. Oh, success. Now, I didn't know if it was true. I just heard word that there's a possibility the cubs are out. I've heard there's 2, but I really didn't know. We raced here on just the off chance, on literally just the off chance, and I believe there's 2 there. Finally, Ribbon, you're not plugging that hole with your ginormous bottom. Yes, there's 2. I think there's definitely 2. Oh, hello. Who are you? Well spotted, Dobby. I don't quite know who that is yet. Oh, little one. You are so sweet. Ouch, that looks a little bit painful. There's another vehicle in the sighting, but we will try and reposition if they leave. We're just being sensitive to the other vehicle. Sorry, Dobby, that was entirely my fault. I'm getting the grumpy face. Presenters are not supposed to do that. Oh, it's so lovely. Oh, their eyes are much more open than they were, Dobby. Don't you agree? It was actually Dobby and I that saw them first, for the very first time. And their eyes are open. Their ears are sort of not so stuck on the back of their head, or at least this one. For those of you who have never seen a hyena cub before, please tell me you've all fallen in love, please. Hyena adults may not be the cutest to everyone. I find them adorable, but not everyone agrees. But my goodness, the cubs are cute. Well done, Ribbon. Avril, you're saying this is the first time you're seeing hyena cubs and they look like little bears. Oh yes, little black bears. They do, they look nothing like the adults. And the spot patterns take about 3 months to appear. So the spots actually are there. It's just because the fur is dark and black, you can't see it. So wonderful. So this has actually been happening the whole time that James, Trishala and myself come to the den. It's just that we haven't been able to see it because Ribbon has positioned herself in such a way that we can't see these cute little guppies. Today we're getting our view. Ribbon's panting heavily with a ginormous balloon inside of her belly. This is so magical. Finally, we get to see them. Patience pays off. I didn't know if we would make it. Oh, who's that? I really didn't know if we would make it. We raced around here. There's another hyena, but I can't see who it is. Okay, I'm just going to try and roll forward a little bit so we don't have the grass cover in the scubby's face. Let's see if the car was a bit jerky. Should I go forward some more, Dobby? Okay, now I'm going to have to turn on my agent for that.
Yep.
That's much better. We won't get a good view of Ribbon's face this way, but hopefully we'll get to see 2 cubbies and not just one. CJ, yes they are. Those little cubs' teeth are sharp, and I imagine it's not so pleasant for Ribbon's nipples, but she seems to be handling it quite well. And hyenas are actually born with their sort of canine teeth erupted. Their teeth are already out of the gum by the time they're born. So they're far more developed than the likes of lions or leopard cubs. And they're little rascals. They strive for dominance from day one. So if we do get a better look at the 2 of them, you will see them wrestling and sort of biting one another and jumping on top of one another, because there's a constant strive for dominance from the minute they are born. And I imagine, I'm just speculating, but I imagine this also goes on in the womb. Punching and kicking each other in the womb, I am sure of it. Oh, Ribbon girl, everybody's been waiting for this moment. We flew over the bumps to get here on time. Here we go. I see a head. I hope my mother is watching. She's been waiting for this moment also. Wildlife Pete, that's a good question. Oh, there's 2. Hi, guys. I think they're having a good sniff of Ribbon's bottom there. Wildlife Pete, challenging the matriarch is actually going against the sort of status quo. It's not the norm in hyenas. There's a strict hierarchy, and they're born with the rank that they're born with, and that's supposed to stay that way throughout their life. We call it the silver spoon effect, just like the royal family, if you like. You are who you are, just from the family you've been born into. And generally, challenging the matriarch is really not a common thing. Now, we have seen it in Waffles, and we have seen it in Ribbon, overthrown Corky, but generally speaking, it's not the norm. So because the Djuma clan is so small, Ribbon and Tima are related, mother and daughter. Heart appears to be very, very close to them. June's already been injured and very much put in her place, and Corky got overthrown. I don't think there is anyone to challenge the matriarch at this point. Wildlife Pete. I'll need to make a note of the time, so 5:30. I wonder if this is a good time to come to the den. I'd love to know if she nurses at the same time every day. I actually brought along a good luck charm today. I'll show you later, and I feel it's worked. What do you think, Davy? He's nodding. I got my favourite leopard and cuppies. Look at those those nasty flies on Ribbon's leg. Ugh. Give me the heebie-jeebies. So I'm hoping slowly... slowly but surely we'll start to see more of these cubs now. And once they're brave enough to set foot outside their little entrance hole of the den, my goodness, there'll be no stopping them. Jack, you're 5 years old from Cape Town and you're asking where do the hyena cubs defecate? In other words, poop, inside the den. But I imagine there'll be a separate area for that. I think it's quite intricate inside, believe it or not. Hyena cubs, you can see Ribbon's claws, you see them? We actually got a view of the little cubby's claw when we first arrived. They're sharp and they can dig. They're good diggers once they get mobile. So I imagine there'll be a little separate tunnel or a little separate hole where they do that, where they sleep. Don't Ribbon urinate all over herself while she sleeps. So I'm not entirely sure, Jack, but that's what I hope. We really can't see what goes on inside the termite mound, but they do defecate and urinate at this stage inside the mound. I just hope it's not on the same page, or the same area, sorry, as where they sleep. Hyenas are not known to be the most hygienic. Oh, look at Ribbon's paw, it's so cute. See, they're still a bit unsure. They're not really coming past Ribbon's back leg. You know, they're not really venturing out and sitting under her tummy just yet. They're still a bit nervous. She's allowing them to. Her body position has shown that she's allowing them to come out. But they're just still a tad nervous and not entirely sure if they want to go past that back leg. Okay, I'm not going to go anywhere. This is perfect, everyone. I'm so glad I got to share it with you all. But for now, you guys are going back across the area for an update.
I believe you've just been spending some time watching some hyena cubs, and I don't know if you saw that male leopard, but really, really cool afternoon down at Djuma. My experience is obviously showing like I said, we saw wild dogs this afternoon, so I'm very stoked about that, very happy. We're back along the river, so literally all we're doing is zigzagging back and forth, meandering along the tall trees. This is just becoming more and more perfect conditions for predators to be around, so we're hoping that something within the next 20 minutes or so will show itself. Yeah, I think we've had 2 people that have been on anti-poaching patrols around this area, and we've covered a lot of ground, and it just seems like the animals haven't really been around this afternoon. But it's a very typical thing to experience in summer when the heat is like this, because all of the animals and the predators spend so much time resting on a hot day. So now that the temperature's dropping really nicely, really hoping that there's going to be some sort of movement. So we're meandering from the river down towards some pans that are on either side of the road, then back down towards the river. So we're just trying to cover as much ground as we can. And just to give you a point of reference, where we were looking for that lioness is right of us. So that's where she's been hanging around for the last couple of days, where the rest of her pride was seen, or the tracks of them were seen, were on the left of us. So we're pretty much right in the middle of the 2 of them. And if one is moving towards the other, then hopefully we might get to see them this evening. So Kirsty's asked what my favorite place on Ngala is. There's a number of places and they're all scattered along the riverbed, and the reason why I love it is just the trees that you have in the area. There's one or two places where you can watch the sunsets. You're in and amongst these trees that are 20-30 meters tall. You look down onto the river, and if you look west where the sun is setting, you can see the Drakensberg on the right hand side. So those are probably some of my favorite spots within the whole of Ngala. Hopefully I'll get to show you what they look like in the next couple of days. I guess it also highlights how it's not all about the animals here. It's about the scenery, it's about the smells, the noises. There's just so much to experience. So if you're driving around and not seeing as much like we have today, there's still so much to take in and to appreciate. And so whilst we appreciating everything, we're going to send you back to James.
I have come back to the northern side of the reserve. I'm hoping to try and catch up with Tingana now, but I'm afraid I don't know where he is. So we'll potter about here, assuming that he's quite near a road, because I think Lauren had him quite near a road. So we've come up to the northern edge. Nice that there are two cubs. I was convinced that one had perhaps bought it, but at least there are two. And the fact that they're out means that we should have some nice sustained sightings of them soon. I'll just quickly do a little turn. Connor, 3 in Cape Town. Yes, I think some of them do. You know, the big cats and the hyenas who we spend a lot of time with, I think they recognize our voices. I don't know if it necessarily means that they like us or they don't like us, or if they obviously don't know our names, but yeah, I'm pretty sure with their clever ears that they're able to distinguish our voices. You know, they can hear each other's voices. They know the difference between each other's voices. I think he was somewhere around here. Some impala there that look pretty chilled out. No, if he is, those impala are about to bite it. Alright, let's go back to Eric. He's managed to find what he was questing for the whole drive.
And just as I said, the moment you give up, you come around the next corner and there's a whole herd of zebras. So we've managed to find them. Finally, I think this might be one of the longest searches of zebra I've had in my life. Probably the most pressure I've ever had. So there's actually quite a lot of them, and I'd like to just loop around to hopefully the front of the herd, and we can see them walking towards us before it gets too dark. And might not get in front of them, but there is a nice gap through the trees I'm going to turn, and hopefully we'll see them crossing one by one. Is the light going to get in the way there, Marcel? Okay, so let me just turn to get the light out the way. There's a female with a youngster that's just about to cross. Thank you, everyone. There we go. Yeah. The setting couldn't be more perfect either, and in the setting sun. Beautiful temperature now, it's so still. And look at how these zebras are walking. It's not like they got their heads down and they're feeding. It almost looks like they're walking in single file. And that tells us that they're trying to get somewhere. So they're walking with purpose. They're trying to cover as much ground as possible. And I wonder where that place may be. I'm trying to think if there's water close by, or if they've come from water. I guess if you look through the bushes here, I mean, as soon as they go in there, they disappear very quickly. And that might be a disadvantage to them throughout the night. So what they might be trying to do is move into an open area and try and settle down for the night where they've got a better vantage point and they can see a little bit better around them. Let's just see. I think they are approaching another road. We'll quickly loop back. Oopsie. So if that female lion is out and about looking for something to hunt, that young foal is going to be something that she could target. So that mother needs to be hyper alert. Alright, so with our good luck and our final search and view of zebras, I think we might end up saying goodbye to you for the evening, and we're going to go send you back to Lauren and hopefully get another view of those hyenas.
I think, everyone, that was it. The reason I actually flew here faster than lightning and forgot to tell James for Tingana was because I got told the cubs are out. It's very brief, and I think that's it. They're in the den now. The last you all saw of them was the last that I saw, and I don't think I could be wrong, but I really don't think we'll get another view. I think that's the cubs for today, and it's interesting to note it happened at 5:30 Djuma time. And I wonder if tomorrow at the same time, Trishala or James could pop by and see if this is a good time for Ribbon to be out suckling. She's huge, her belly is full, she's dirty all around her face and her legs. She's been up to no good. Yes. There's another hyena lurking around her. I think there's two. Two of them were very, very interested, but they haven't came close. So luckily we made it. We made it just in time to see these cubbies, and that was it. So of course I have mentioned this already, but just one reminder for you all, if you are interested in supporting us in any way that you can, you are welcome to head over to the website www.wildearth.tv/support, and there's many options there for you as you wish. Oh, what a drive. James has turned into the elephant whisperer, I think. He's having the most incredible sightings with elephants. I got really lucky with Tingana. And here, we just managed to see those cubs. And it was brief. It was very brief. I just got a message, Lauren, come now or you're not going to see them. And of course, we flew here and we managed to get the briefest visual of two. So Ribbon's two cubs are safe and well. And I think they're tucked down for the night. I really do. Oh, look at all the flies swarming Ribbon. And of course we are in IR now using our infrared light because the ambient light is just too low. It won't give a nice visual of Ribbon, who's panting beautifully. She's done such a good job. She's an experienced mother and she's done a really, really good job. I've just heard some good news. It seems that James has managed to catch up with the Duke, so over to them.
There is the Duke of Djuma. His head is up, and it's lovely to see him again. And I think it's fascinating to see where he's sitting right now. I don't know where he's been from here, but he's been around this area the last 2 times we've seen him. And the fact that he's sawing tells me that he's either feeling pressure on this boundary, or maybe the reason we're seeing him here so frequently is that this is just the easiest kind of place for us to see him. So he's either on the clearings outside camp or near the dam cam or around here where it's open. And in the rest of his territory it's much more dense. And maybe that's why we haven't been seeing him there. But the fact that he's sawing here on what is traditionally the western boundary of his territory, well, That's the territorial call. I mean, there's nothing short of that. This cat's not going into retirement anytime soon. The impala have heard him, and they are so afraid, and so they should be. There are not a lot of 13-year-old leopards that look like this guy, I've got to tell you. He'll be 14 in December, I think. Every time he stands up, every time I see him and he stands up, I think to myself, I don't want him to stand up, because if I start to see that telltale loss of mass in the hindquarters, I start to feel very sad and worried for him. But there's none of that at all. He looks in pristine condition. Remember how always he got up with a limp? Do you remember how many times we watched him get up and walk and limp away? And now, he looks 100%. It's so cool. So, for those of you who haven't spent a lot of time around this cat, he lived in Arathusa, far to the west of us, for a long time, and this was actually... Sorry, this vehicle is obviously noisier than most nightclubs. And this was traditionally his western boundary, his eastern boundary. Then he shifted over, and this is his boundary with Hukumuri now, normally, but I haven't seen him calling this far to the west for a long time. And I think it's fascinating. Let's just get in front of him, we'll get a nice view, and maybe he'll call again. Yeah, Lena, exactly what I was saying there. It's so nice that his limp is gone. I mean, a lot of these cats have got limps all the time because they live physically, traumatic lives. When they hunt, the chances of getting injured are high. Not hungry. See how his belly almost goes in a straight line to his hindquarters. He walks behind Hypothelia dissoluta, the yellow thatching grass. Okay, we'll try again. Get around in front of him. Okay, going to infrared now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Please don't hit a stump. 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 Yep, there's a stump. Nearly hit me in the face. Let's see if he gives another call. Shh. We've got 1 minute left. Let's just see where he goes now. I'm quite interested to see if he turns up towards the west and north, or if he goes down towards the camp. He's going to mark again here. We might just extend a little bit, if that's all right, everyone. I mean, you don't have to watch. You're not obliged to stay with us. Let's just see where he goes. So often you'll have both of these cats marking on this exact point. And Hukamuri will then turn off towards the west and north, and Tingana traditionally will do what he's doing now. He'll either go straight into the block there and down towards the pan next to Gallagher Camp, and that's in the sort of, I guess, pretty much due northerly direction, or he'll walk down towards our camp. And now he phlegm grimaces to interpret the urine of another cat. This is not a cat ready to go into retirement yet. Giving a good account of himself there. All right, everybody, I think let's close it out. We'll hopefully find them again in the morning. Thank you once again for your questions and comments. Thank you most of all for your time and for enjoying this drive with us. We will see you again tomorrow at 0600.